My wife cheated with her boss for 1 year, but when I found out my two daughters lied to cover for her, I disinherited them all, and they never saw the consequences coming. I'm 52 years old. I was married for 30 years. Or well, I was. Because what I discovered about a month ago basically destroyed everything I thought was my life, my family, my marriage, everything. And it wasn't just that my wife Diana cheated on me. No, that would be almost easy to process compared to what really happened, because it turns out my two daughters, the girls I raised, who I watched grow up, who I drove to school every day for years, were also involved in all this shit. I guess I should start from the beginning, when everything was normal, or at least I thought it was normal. Diana and I got married young. I was like 22 years old and she was 20, and yeah, people said we were too young, but we never cared because we were in love, you know? In that intense and kind of naive way you can only be when you're in your 20s. We had Samantha when I was 26, and 2 years later, Rachel came along. We built a life together. Like the classic suburban family with a 2-story house, dog, annual beach vacations, all that. I worked in finance. Nothing super exciting, but it paid well. And Diana started working part-time when the girls were little, but eventually got a full-time job at a marketing company. Like 5 years ago, I think. Her boss was Anthony, a guy I met a couple times at company events. Seemed normal, professional, never thought anything weird. The girls grew up and became these amazing women, or so I thought. Samantha is the oldest. She's 26 now. Always been the studious one. Graduated as valedictorian from her university. Got an amazing job in consulting. We got engaged like 8 months ago to a guy I liked, a lawyer named David. We were planning the wedding for this summer. Everything good, everything perfect. Rachel, my baby, is 24. Completely different from her sister. More relaxed, more spontaneous. Works in freelance graphic design. Always was the sweetest of the two. The one who would hug me for no reason. The one who would call me just to tell me. Some random thing she saw on the internet. Both of them lived on their own. But we got together as a family at least twice a week, Sunday dinners, that kind of thing. Everything was perfect. I mean, I had the life I always wanted. Looking back, I should have seen the signs, right? Diana started working later, dressing differently, more put together, more careful with her appearance. I thought she was trying to impress at work, to get that promotion she'd been mentioning for months. She started going more often to work dinners and company events, and I never questioned anything because honestly, why would I? We'd been together 30 years. I trusted her completely. Never in my life thought Diana would cheat on me, not for a second. Everything changed like 5 weeks ago. It was a normal Friday. Diana was getting ready in the bathroom and left her phone on the bed. I was lying there watching the news and the phone vibrated, and I don't know why, but I looked. Like it was a weird instinct. It was a message from Anthony, work, that said something like, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Beautiful." And I froze. I just stared at those words, trying to process them, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was another Anthony. Maybe I was misinterpreting something. But then I saw there were previous messages, many of them, and I started reading, and basically my world fell apart. They were flirty messages, intimate ones. The kind of things you write when you're with someone, when you're in a relationship. Diana came out of the bathroom all dressed up, in that black dress that looked amazing on her, and told me she was going to dinner with the girls, that Samantha had organized something at that new Italian restaurant downtown, that she'd probably be home late. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, something she'd done 1,000 times before, but this time it felt completely different. It felt like a lie. She left, and I just sat there on the bed, with her phone in my hand, reading message after message, seeing photos they'd sent each other, and everything I read was worse than the last. When I could finally move, I called Rachel. She answered after like 3 rings and sounded happy, normal, and I asked her where she was. She told me she was at her boyfriend's apartment watching a movie, and I felt something didn't add up. I asked her specifically, "Aren't you supposed to have dinner with your mom and Samantha?" And there was a pause, like 2 seconds of silence that felt eternal. And then she said, "Oh yeah, sorry Dad, I'm confused. The dinner is tomorrow, not today." but her voice sounded weird, nervous, like when she lied as a teenager and I'd ask her if she'd done her homework. I hung up and called Samantha, and she told me exactly the same thing, that the dinner was tomorrow, that I was confused. But I knew. I just knew they were lying to me. I did something I thought I'd do. Something that always seemed invasive and paranoid to me, but in that moment I didn't care about anything. I opened the location sharing app we had as a family, a thing we started using years ago when the girls were teenagers to know where they were, and that we never stopped using because, why would we? If we had nothing to hide, or so I thought. Diana's location showed she was at that Italian restaurant she'd mentioned, but Rachel and Samantha's locations showed they were exactly where they'd told me they were, in completely different places. My daughters had just lied to my face, directly, without hesitating, and that meant they knew, that they were covering for their mother, that my whole family was conspiring against me. I don't really remember what happened next, like everything is blurry, but I got in the car and drove to that restaurant. It was like 8 at night, and traffic was heavy, but I still got there. In about 25 minutes, I found the restaurant. It was one of those fancy places with big windows, and I parked across the street where I could see inside, but from my car. And there they were, Diana and Anthony, sitting at a table in the corner, laughing, talking. And then I saw it. He took her hand across the table, and she didn't pull away. On the contrary, she intertwined her fingers with his. I sat there watching this scene like it was a movie. Like it wasn't real. Like it wasn't my wife of 30 years holding hands with another man in a public restaurant while my daughters lied to me to cover for her. I took out my phone and took pictures, several, making sure you could clearly see it was them, that they were together, that they were holding hands. Then I opened our family chat. That WhatsApp group we had, the 4 of us where we shared memes and coordinated dinners, and I sent the photo with the text, "What a nice family dinner. Too bad you forgot to invite me." I sent it and got out of there, couldn't stay one more second, felt like I was going to throw up or scream or do something stupid. I drove to my brother Kenneth's house, who lives like 40 minutes away. Got there, knocked on his door like at 9 at night, and when he opened and saw my face, he immediately knew something terrible had happened. Kenneth let me in, gave me a beer, and I sat on his couch and told him everything while my phone wouldn't stop vibrating with messages and calls. Rachel sent me like 15 messages in a row, all saying, "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. I didn't want to lie to you. Please." Samantha only sent one that said, "You're overreacting. You need to calm down and talk to Mom rationally." That word, overreacting, like discovering your wife is cheating and your daughters are lying to cover for her, was an overreaction. Diana called me like 20 times, sent messages saying we needed to talk, that she could explain everything, that please don't do anything drastic. Kenneth, who's always been the more direct and unfiltered brother, told me something that in that moment hurt but now I'm grateful for. He said, "Gregory, you need to cut them all off, not just Diana, all of them, because if your daughters were willing to lie to you and cover for her, then they're not who you thought they were." I told him he was crazy, that they were my daughters, my family, but he just shook his head and told me to stay there as long as I needed, that his house was my house. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I spent hours reading all the messages between Diana and Anthony I could find on her phone before she left. The thing had been going on for almost a year. Almost a fucking year. I read messages where Diana told Anthony I was boring, that our sex life was non-existent, which was a lie, or at least I thought it wasn't that bad, that she felt trapped in our marriage. I read messages where they talked about encounters they'd had, hotels where they'd met, lies Diana had told me to be able to be with him. And the worst part, what really destroyed me, was reading messages where Diana mentioned that the girls knew. That Samantha had seen her with Anthony at a cafe months ago, and Diana had told her everything, and that Samantha had promised not to say anything. Rachel found out later. Apparently Samantha told her, and also decided to keep the secret. Saturday morning, after like 3 hours of sleep on Kenneth's couch, I woke up, and the first thing I did was call my bank. I canceled all our joint credit cards, moved half the money from our shared accounts to a new account only in my name, changed the passwords to everything. Then I called a lawyer. One a friend had recommended years ago as the most aggressive in divorces. and got an appointment for Monday. During all that time, Deanna wouldn't stop calling and sending messages, but I didn't respond even once. Sunday, Deanna showed up at Kenneth's house. Kenneth opened the door, saw her standing there all dressed up with that concerned wife look, and told her I didn't want to see her, she insisted. Said she had a right to explain herself, and Kenneth, bless my brother, told her she'd lost all her rights when she decided to fuck her boss for a year while her husband believed he had a happy marriage. She started crying there on the porch, saying I was cruel, that she needed to talk to me, and finally Kenneth looked at me and asked what I wanted to do. I told him to let her in, because part of me, as stupid as it sounds, needed to hear her, needed to understand why. Diana came in and sat in front of me in Kenneth's living room, and honestly, I don't know what I expected her to say. She looked at me with those teary eyes and told me she was sorry, that she never wanted to hurt me, that it just happened, that Anthony made her feel alive in a way I no longer did, that our marriage had become a boring routine, and she needed more. I asked her how long, even though I already knew from the messages, and she admitted almost a year. I asked her why the girls had covered for her, and she said she never asked them to. That when Samantha discovered her, she begged her not to tell me because she needed time to figure out what she wanted to do with our marriage, and that Samantha was just trying to protect the family. Protect the family. Those words made me laugh, like a bitter and horrible laugh, because how does lying to me and covering up an affair protect the family? I told her I wanted a divorce, that there was nothing to discuss, that what we'd had was dead and buried. She started crying harder, saying we could go to couples therapy, that we could fix it, that she still loved me. And I told her, no, Diana, you don't love me, because if you loved me, you wouldn't have been fucking your boss for a year while I like an idiot thought we were happy. I told her to leave Kenneth's house, that my lawyer would contact her on Monday, and that as for the money, she could forget about keeping everything, because I was going to fight for every cent. I also told her, and this surprised her, that I was going to cut off all financial support for Samantha's wedding. The wedding I was going to pay for. About $40,000 I'd been saving for years, because I wanted to give my oldest daughter the wedding of her dreams. But it wasn't my problem anymore. I told her that if Samantha wanted to cover for her mother and lie to me, then she could pay for her own wedding. Diana told me I was being cruel to Samantha, that she had nothing to do with our couple problems, and I just looked at her and told her to get out of there before I said something that would really make me look cruel. The next few days were chaos with lawyer calls, papers to sign, accounts to separate. Monday I met with the lawyer, a guy named Richard, who was like 60 years old and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in divorce cases. I told him everything, showed him the photos, the messages, everything, and he basically rubbed his hands and told me this was going to be an easy case, that with such clear evidence of infidelity, we could make sure Diana didn't keep the house or most of our savings. I also mentioned I wanted to cut off any future financial support to my daughters, and although he warned me that was complicated because both were adults and technically I didn't owe them anything, he suggested I review my will and anything else where they were named as beneficiaries. Rachel called me Tuesday, crying, begging me to let her see me, that she needed to explain her side of the story. I agreed to meet her at a park near Kenneth's house, a public place where she couldn't make a scene. She arrived with swollen eyes from crying so much. She looked terrible and gave me a hug I barely returned. She told me she was so sorry, that she should never have lied to me, that when Samantha told her about Mom and Anthony months ago, she told her we had to tell me. But Samantha convinced her it would be worse if we did, that it would destroy the family, that it was better to wait for Mom to decide what to do. I asked her how she could think lying to me was better than telling me the truth, and she just cried more and told me she was scared, that she didn't want us to get divorced, that she didn't want the family to be destroyed. I told her it was too late for that the family was already destroyed, not by the divorce, but by the lies. I told her I loved her, but I needed time to process all this, that I couldn't just forgive her and move on like nothing had happened. She begged me to reconsider about Samantha's wedding, saying Samantha was devastated, that she'd saved some money, but not enough, that her wedding was in 3 months and now she didn't know what to do. And here's the thing, part of me felt guilty, because Samantha was my daughter and I'd raised her and loved her for 26 years, and the idea of ruining her wedding hurt me. But the other part of me, The part that had been betrayed by my whole family. Thought, so what? Why should I pay for a wedding for someone who lied straight to my face and who to this day thinks I overreacted? I told Rachel my decision was made, that Samantha would have to find another way to pay for her wedding, and that maybe Anthony could contribute since Diana was so in love with him. Wednesday, I met with Samantha at a coffee shop, and this meeting was completely different. Samantha arrived with that defensive attitude she always had when you confronted her about something, arms crossed, hard expression. She sat in front of me, and before I could say anything, she told me I was being childish, that Mom had made a mistake, but that 30 years of marriage should be worth more than an affair, that I was destroying the family over my wounded ego. Over my wounded ego. Like discovering your wife is cheating on you for a year was simply a matter of ego. I told her she clearly didn't understand the gravity of what had happened, and she replied that they really didn't understand was why I was punishing her for Mom's mistakes. I told her I was punishing her for lying to me, for covering for her mother, for choosing Diana's side instead of doing the right thing. She told me there were no sides, that she was her mom, and of course she was going to support her. That what did I expect? That she'd run to tell me everything like a gossip? I told her yes. That's what I expected. Because that's what people who love you do. They tell you the truth even if it hurts. The conversation got more tense. She started crying, but it was different from Rachel's crying. It was crying from frustration and anger. She told me I was being a monster. That how could I take away her wedding money after promising I'd help her? That David and she had planned everything based on that money. I told her that wasn't my problem anymore, that I'd made my decision and I wasn't going to change it. She got up from the table, called me selfish and cruel, and left. That was the last time I saw her. After those meetings with my daughters, something broke in me. Something definitive. Kenneth was right. I couldn't maintain relationships with people who had betrayed me like that, no matter if they were my blood. I hired a financial planner, and we reviewed everything. My will, where both girls were named as beneficiaries of my life insurance and my retirement plan, the savings accounts I'd opened for them when they were babies. Everything. I changed everything, removed their names from absolutely everything, and put Kenneth as my only beneficiary, with instructions that if something happened to me, he would decide what to do with my money. I also updated my will to make it clear I was disinheriting them consciously, not because I forgot about them, but because it was a deliberate decision based on their actions. Rachel called me the following Friday, crying hysterically, saying Samantha had told her I'd disinherited them, begging me to reconsider, saying this was too far, that we were family, that she was so sorry and would do anything to fix it. I told her there was nothing to fix, that my decision was made, and that I needed both of them to leave me alone for a while. She asked me how long, and I honestly told her I didn't know, maybe forever. Samantha sent me an email, not a call or a text message, a fucking formal email like it was a business transaction. In the email, she basically accused me of being a terrible father, of prioritizing my pride over my daughters, of destroying the family out of revenge. She said Mom had admitted her mistake, and I was incapable of forgiving. That my reaction was disproportionate and cruel, and that she hoped someday I'd realize the damage I was causing. She ended the email saying she didn't want contact with me until I could behave like a mature adult. I read that email like 3 times, and each time I got angrier. Because, seriously? She was giving me lessons on maturity after lying to me. For months, I didn't respond to the email. In fact, I blocked Samantha from my phone, from my email, from all my social media. I did the same with Diana. I left Rachel unblocked because at least she showed some genuine remorse, but made it clear I didn't want contact for now. Kenneth told me I was doing the right thing, that sometimes the best decision is to cut off toxic relationships even if they're family. Especially if they're family, because the damage the closest people can cause you is the worst kind of damage. The divorce process moved fast thanks to the clear evidence of infidelity. Diana tried to fight for the house and for half my savings, but Richard was relentless, presented all the photos, all the messages, built such a solid case that Diana's lawyer basically advised her to accept the settlement we offered her. She kept her car, her retirement plan, and a relatively small amount of cash. I kept the house, most of our savings, and my dignity, I guess. It's been like 5 weeks since that night I discovered everything. The divorce still isn't completely finalized. There's like another month of paperwork left. But basically, it's done. Diana moved to an apartment near her work. Apparently, she's still with Anthony, though I don't care enough to confirm that. Samantha had to postpone her wedding or change all the plans to something much smaller and cheaper. I'm not sure because I haven't talked to her and don't plan to. Rachel sent me a message like 2 weeks ago, just saying she missed me and hoped I was okay. And I responded with a simple, thanks. Nothing more. I moved back to my house a week ago. The house I shared with Diana for 25 years, but that now is only mine. Kenneth helped me pack all of Diana's remaining things, and we left them in the garage for her to pick up. I changed the locks, repainted the master bedroom because I couldn't sleep there seeing the same walls where Diana would get ready to go see Anthony, and basically I'm trying to turn this place into something new. Something that's only mine and not a constant reminder of what I lost. The truth is, I don't know if I did the right thing. Disinheriting my daughters and cutting off all contact with them. There are days where I think maybe I was too harsh, that maybe I should have given them another chance, especially Rachel, who at least seemed genuinely sorry. But then I remember how they lied to me, how they looked me in the eyes and told me the family dinner was another day, how they chose to protect their mother instead of doing the right thing, and the anger comes back. It's not an explosive anger like in the beginning. Now it's more like a heavy and constant sadness, like mourning for the family I thought I had, but apparently never really existed. I'm in therapy now. Something I never thought I'd need, but Kenneth insisted I do. My therapist, a woman about 50 years old named Patricia, told me it's normal to feel this mix of emotions, that the healing process after such a deep betrayal takes time, that there's no instruction manual for dealing with the fact that your entire family lied to you. She asked me if I'd ever consider reconciling with my daughters, and honestly, I don't know the answer. Maybe in a few years, maybe never. I have no idea. What I do know is that I'm no longer the same Gregory I was 5 weeks ago. The naive guy who thought he had a solid marriage and a united family. That Gregory died the night I saw Diana holding hands with Anthony in that restaurant. This new Gregory is more cautious, more cynical maybe, but also more aware of his own worth, more willing to establish boundaries and walk away from people who don't treat him with the basic respect any human being deserves. Kenneth tells me I'm doing a good job rebuilding myself, that he sees a strength in me he hadn't seen before. I'm not sure strength is what I feel. Most days I just feel tired and sad, but I guess the fact that I'm here, that I didn't collapse completely, that I'm taking steps to move forward, counts as something. I've started going to the gym, something I hadn't done in years, and I'm considering selling the house and moving to something smaller, a fresh start in a new place without all these memories. Samantha's wedding supposedly is in 2 months. I wonder what it's going to be like, if they managed to get the money to do it as they planned or if they had to scale everything down drastically. Part of me, a small and pathetic part, wonders if they're going to invite me, if Samantha is going to put aside her pride and want her father there. But the truth is, even if she invited me, I don't think I'd go. I can't stand there and pretend everything's okay, that we're a happy family, not after everything that happened. And yeah, maybe that makes me cruel like Samantha says, but it's the only thing I can do to protect myself right now. Diana tried to talk to me like 2 weeks ago, showed up at my work, and we had a brief conversation in the parking lot. She told me that Anthony and she broke up, that she realized it was a mistake, that what we had was real for 30 years, and that one affair shouldn't erase it all. I told her it was too late for those reflections, that she'd made her decision when she decided to cheat on me for a year, and that I'd made mine when I decided to divorce. She asked me if we could ever be friends, and I just laughed, like a dry and bitter laugh, and told her no, that we could never be friends, that I could barely look at her without feeling disgusted. That hurt her. I saw it on her face. But it's no longer my job to protect her feelings. Yesterday, Rachel sent me a long message, like one of those messages where you can clearly tell she thought about every word. She told me she understood why I was angry, that she didn't expect me to forgive her soon, but that she was going to keep trying because I was her dad and she loved me, even if I couldn't love her back right now. She ended saying that when I was ready, she'd be there, waiting, no matter how long it took. I haven't responded yet, don't know what to say, because the truth is part of me wants to believe her, wants to give her another chance. But another part is so tired of trusting, and being disappointed that I don't know if I can risk it again. I guess this is my life now, trying to navigate this new territory where my family doesn't exist the way it existed before, where the people I thought knew and loved me more than anyone turned out to be capable of lying to me and betraying me. I don't have a happy ending for this story. I don't have a nice lesson I've learned or an inspiring moral. I just have my day-to-day, getting up, going to work, going to the gym, going to therapy, trying to find some peace in the middle of all this mess. Kenneth told me the other night, while we were drinking beer on his deck, that eventually this would hurt less. That time doesn't heal everything, but it does make things more manageable. I want to believe him. I want to believe that someday I'll be able to think about my 30 years with Diana and not feel this horrible mix of rage and sadness. That I'll be able to see photos of my daughters when they were little and not feel this weight on my chest. But for now, I can only take things day by day, decide every morning that I'm going to move forward, that I'm not going to let this destroy me completely. And that's it, I guess. This is my story. The story of how my entire family conspired to hide my wife's infidelity from me, and how that betrayal led me to cut ties with all of them. I don't know if I did the right thing. I don't know if in 10 years I'm going to regret these decisions, but it's what I need to do now to survive. And maybe that's enough.